Hi, my honeys, from a bitterly cold and very rainy South Africa today. I am hoping that the weather won't affect my lighting and my sound too much for this week's episode. Today, I wanted to discuss tears and crying. Why do we cry? If you remember that movie, The Grinch, with Jim Carrey, there was that one very, very funny scene where he starts crying for the first time when his heart is activated and he freaks out saying, I'm leaking, I'm leaking. Why do we leak? It's a strange thing, isn't it? And why would I want to discuss crying? You know, I grew up with a very English granny who always used to use the expression, having a jolly good cry. What's good about crying? What are its benefits? And specifically for this episode, what are the qualities of tears? Water is the element that carries emotions, our feelings. Why is that? Well, two reasons mainly. Because water holds memory, being that it is liquid crystal. It holds memory, much like crystals in our devices do. And because water flows. Water is the element that flows, and that is what emotions, feelings, need to do. They need to flow, because an emotion, remember, is energy that is in motion. I have delved much deeper into this topic of water as the element of emotions in previous episodes. I will do my best to remember to go and look specifically what episodes they were and link them in this video if you'd like to go into that more in depth. But what happens when we stagnate the water element that carries our emotions? When we don't allow them to flow because we're suppressing them somehow? We have many, many, many tools of emotional suppression. We can reject a feeling, deny a feeling, attempt to suppress or project a feeling. When we do that, when we force the flow to stop, what happens to that energy in motion that we're forced to stop? Well, it has to particularize. It has to change from a wave of moving energy into a particle. It crystallizes as salt, and that is held somewhere in the body. We attempt often as a protection mechanism to externalize our feelings via a projection or blame. But then we internalize the resultant emotional state of doing that. So if we're blaming someone or something else for the way that we feel, then what we internalize is victimization and powerlessness. So either way, whether we are internalizing the emotion via a suppression mechanism, internalizing it via shame even, or we're attempting to externalize it and internalizing the resultant emotion instead, either way, that salty crystal is held in the body somewhere. And that wreaks havoc on our system. Salt crystal particles are valuable because they are a preservative. The reason why they are a preservative is because they are dead energy. Salt crystal has removed everything organic. It is inorganic, dead energy. And so when those salt crystal particles settle into our joints, for example, over time, the buildup of those particles is what we call arthritis. The feelings that would cause salt crystals to go to the joints are related usually to being or feeling deeply criticized. Whether that is a critical spirit we hold in ourselves towards others, or criticism we perceive to be receiving from another. If we don't process the resultant emotions of criticism, or that spirit of criticism and judgment in us, then it'll go to the joints. In terms of things like clogging up our arteries, where those particles collect in the veins of our hearts, that will be from rejecting or suppressing or embodying and identifying with emotions of pain, hurt, and rejection. If we internalize a lot of anger, rage, or hatred, those can lead to inflammatory conditions, things like gout, that are really very painful. When they settle into our tissues, our muscles, or our nervous system, then it can become chronic illnesses that we carry, which are very fatiguing and weakening. When we internalize feelings related to a victimized identification, our inability to cope with what we perceive as a hard and horrible life, those can go to our digestive system, causing all sorts of problems with how we actually metabolize, take in, and release nourishment. So in many ways, not allowing our emotions to flow are the initial seeds that later can become disease. Because remember, my honeys, that's what disease is. Dis-ease. We are not in the flow. We are not at ease. We are not processing feelings. A healthy emotional flow is like a river, like the ocean, and like a fountain. It moves in real time. We connect to a certain feeling. We allow ourselves to feel it. We tell ourselves the truth about it. We take responsibility for it, and we allow it to leave again. Much like thoughts that come into our minds, we entertain them for a little while. We tell ourselves what is or isn't true about it, and we allow the thought to leave again. And it doesn't become any more than that. We don't identify with it. We don't make it mine. We don't internalize and embody it. But if we have had a habit of doing so, and then we come back to that feeling to process it and allow ourselves to cry, that is why tears are salty, my honeys, because the body is releasing that salt particle via our tear ducts. Not all tears are equal. We have very different kinds of tears. Tears of healing and release swell, much like waves on the ocean, like the tides that ebb and flow. There is a swell to that healing and release. Tears of joy that are just healthy and wonderful bounce. It's like rain. It's so refreshing to cry those truly happy tears. Heartbroken tears flow like a river. They just flow effortlessly almost down our faces. And every now and then we will gulp, like the river is flowing around some rock formations. We release them fairly easily. But sometimes it can be a rushing, gushing river. Angry tears burn. They're hot. They hurt our eyes and our faces, much like geysers that come up in various places in the earth, letting off that steam. Tears of agony rush They are like a waterfall coming down off a cliff. And truly sad tears, silently and quietly well up in our eyes, and then are released like a fountain. We have imaged various kinds of tears, and we can clearly see the difference in their frequency and vibration, the difference in their structure. It's amazing. Somewhere I will put in a B-roll of some of those images for you to see. It's quite remarkable what the different crystalline structures within different kinds of tears actually are. Much like imaging words when it's programmed into water. It's fascinating. So when crying is done with the intent of release, when it is done with a desire for healing, then crying is ever so beneficial. It's like medicine. But if that is not our intent, if we are holding an intent to get sympathy and validation for what we feel in order to continue feeling it, if we want to wallow in how we feel, have a pity party not to release but to entertain, it's counterproductive. Very often that is what happens in support groups that can become hand-holding echo chambers, where nobody is actually getting over and truly processing their feelings, but just talking about them, wallowing in them, and being sympathized with, staying right where they are in those painful emotional states. There are people who apparently can't cry. I am certainly no expert in that. I cry at the drop of a tissue. A song, a memory, I cry very, very easily. But if you are one of those people who struggles to cry, or very seldom cries, or can't cry, then what I can say to you is don't judge that. Don't judge yourself for that. Find another way to process your feelings and to release them. Some people find release by talking it out with someone who is understanding and can help you to better understand what it is that you feel and why you feel that way. Some people release via journaling. Writing it out helps them to access their own wisdom, be their own counsel, in order to process and release emotions. A lot of people release physically via doing something like vigorously cleaning the house, or dancing, or even something combative like boxing. Again, as long as the intent is emotional release and not just venting, then it will be healing. One more thing that I must also add, that in English, it is no coincidence that the word tear and the word tear are spelt exactly the same way. To tear is to rip, to split, to wound. And that is the choice, my honeys. Internalize a tear, microscopic, but damaging, more about the word tear and tear, understanding it as T, ear. The word is composed of capital letter T and ear. So let's first examine capital letter T. T is the cut-off cross. What is it that we're cutting off? If you think about a T-junction kind of street, it's what we call a dead end, right? Because once you arrive at that T-junction, you can go left or you can go right, but you cannot continue forward. Left and right, choice, duality. The ability to continue forward is to grow, to adapt, to change, to move ahead, a new destination. So a dead end is cutting that off. When you think about the letter T, in ancient times, the god Tammuz was worshipped and honored by that dead end T cross. It is also, very sadly, where we have developed the Catholic habit of, I don't even want to do it, of crossing the self. My honeys, our hands, our fingers pointed, are magic wands. It's how we direct energy. We should never point at someone else because 3 fingers are pointing back at us. Whatever we send out is going to come back to us, at least 3-fold worse. But when we use our hands to gesture something like this, cut off your words, close your throat chakra, or even worse, slit your throat, as in behead you, this action of crossing off with our hands forms an energetic block, a T-square, where we're cutting it off. Where are we cutting it off? When we cross ourselves that way, we're cutting off the heart chakra. I only want to feel from my lower energy centers. Don't let my high heart come online and, tell me things that my ego, my negative energy, doesn't want to hear. So if you think about the T-cross in contrast to the Ankh, the Egyptian Ankh, which is like a T-cross but with the circle above, that is literally our body. The arms of the cross are our shoulders, and the circle is this, flowing down into our trunk, being open to all our higher centers, being able to express truth, access the higher mind, feel from higher frequencies, see more and deeper from an expanded perspective, be connected to the highest truth. Our emotions are messengers from the angels, whether they're positive or negative, about what it is that we are thinking, because our thoughts are creative. Our feelings empower those thoughts and potentially embody them as our reality, our life. And we hold on to or release, grasp or attempt to project those resultant vibrations. So it is important that we understand this, my honeys, and we live our lives on the highest road possible, accessing the broadest perspective, the greatest truth, and the vastest power that we can, releasing all that doesn't benefit us. And one of the ways we can do that is via the grace of our tear ducts, truly having a good and a healthy cry. I send you so much love. Thank you for being here with me. And in the light of love, as always, I see you well.